name is Alan Reinecke, and I am the chair of the Campbell County Drug-Free Alliance. We are here today at our 5th Youth Summit, and this is just one of the activities that we do throughout the year to help reduce youth substance use in Campbell County. We have over 30 partners from our community that come together to help make events like this possible. And recently we were awarded a federal drug-free communities grant through the Office of National Drug Control Policy. This allowed us to hire a full-time project coordinator and a part-time youth task force coordinator. They are there to provide support to our coalition members so that we can make a greater impact in Campbell County.
I've been a teacher for 8 years. I've coached high school football for 16 years. Through that time, I've had a unique opportunity to spend a lot of time with a lot of different kids. In my family, we just moved out to Campbell County. I grew up out by Ryle and Union, and so I'm lost. I have no idea where anything is. This morning, I was driving around all over EKU's campus trying to figure out where this was. I know to you guys that seems silly, but it takes me some time to figure it out. I have 2 young kids, so I do have kind of a parent perspective on this. One of them is 5. Her name is Ellie. She's the nicest, cutest little girl in the world, in my opinion. She's the best little girl, hands down, bar none. Whenever we had my daughter, I really wanted a boy, and I'm so disappointed that it wasn't a boy. And I couldn't imagine now not having a daughter. I think it's the greatest thing in the world. I have a son that's 1.5, and he really is the cutest thing in the world. He has these little glasses that he wears, and he's going to be Clark Kent for Halloween, and he just fits the part super well. They got all of their good looks from my wife, who is a wonderful lady and a saint for putting up with me and coaching football and all those things. So with my kids, I always have told my students that I always want my kids to have it better than me, and I think that every parent always looks at their kids and says, I want them to have a better life than I did. So I'm going to share with you my perspective on that, and kind of the things that I talk to a lot of my students about. And some of them are a couple stories about my experiences, and really about finding a reason to not drink. Whenever I was in high school, those things were around the same that they're around now. And I'm not going to stand up here and say that I'm a perfect person and I've never made a mistake, because I definitely have. But what I will tell you is this, and I'm going to start off with a story. Whenever I was 13 years old, 12 years old, I came home one day, got off the bus, and my aunt was waiting on me at the bus stop. I got off the bus and she said, hey, you need to jump in the car, we got to go to your house. Because normally I got off at my friend's house because we would just run around and just do all kinds of boy stuff. So I got in the car and I didn't think anything of it, and we got to my house and there were police cars there. A lot of other cars there, and it's like, this isn't good. This looks bad. But when I got there, my aunt was running around trying to find my parents, and they weren't there. So she said, we got to get in the car. And because I was starting to get upset that I couldn't find my parents. So we drove out to World of Sports, and I don't know if you guys know where that is, but it's in Florence, out by the Florence Mall. And we pulled up there, and there's a little bend as you go down the hill. And there's a big, huge tree. And as I'm walking out of the car down the hill, I see a white S10 that's about halfway up the tree. And the whole front end is completely smashed in. And I'm like, this is my brother's car. And I see my parents, and they're really, really upset. And at that point, obviously, I've become pretty upset. And I continue to walk forward, and I see my brother still inside the car. And the engine from the S10 is gone completely through the upper half of his body. And my brother unfortunately made some decisions that weren't the greatest. And he and one of his friends were out driving the car, and he died. And for me, and seeing that whenever you're a middle school kid, it just affected me like I can't even describe. It's still hard to talk about now. My brother was my hero when I was growing up. He was the person that I wanted to be, and I'm sure if you are an older sibling, you can relate to that, right? Who has younger siblings in here? Anybody? Your younger siblings look up to you and drive you crazy, right? But they look up to you, yes? My brother was that person for me. He was my hero. He was everything I wanted to be. So, kind of from that point on, once I figured out what happened and we learned more about the story, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna, use alcohol or do drugs in high school. Just not. And for me, it really helped me, I think, because it gave me a reason to not do those things. And it was really easy for me, and that's where, like, I think it's harder for you guys, because I had a reason. It was really simple. I was gonna honor my brother's memory and, like, forget everybody else. I was gonna do that. And as a matter of fact, all my friends knew so well what I was about and the reasons why I wasn't gonna do those things that very clearly, they weren't even gonna ask me, because they knew that that's not what I was about. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that I was never around that stuff in high school, because it definitely was. I definitely made it a point to try not to be. And I'm not going to tell you that, I've never done it before in my life, but what I'm gonna tell you is that during a time where I made a lot of dumb decisions, because I think that, like, that's like a universal truth about, like, 13 to 18, you're the center of the universe, and you think that all the decisions you make don't matter. Well, during that time, I had a why. I had a reason not to go drink, and a reason to. When all my friends were out doing those things, I had a reason to say no. So the first thing I'm going to encourage you to do, find a reason, because if your reason is strong, you won't do it. And if your reason's not very strong, you'll cave into those things. For me, obviously, I had a really good reason, right? Like, seeing something like that at 12 or 13, it affects you. But if you can't do it for yourself, look at somebody else in your faith, somebody you respect, somebody that's your hero, and say, I'm going to do it for that person, okay? The second story I'm going to share with you is about a young man named Travis Allen. Travis was a football player for me. I coached him for 3 years at Robb High School. He's probably the finest human being I've ever met. Travis was the kid that, like, as a parent, you wanted your daughter to bring home. The nicest, sweetest boy. He would go out, he would volunteer time on the weekends to swim with autistic kids. As a 13-year-old freshman, on his own, nobody told him to. He's that kid. He was the kid that, opened the door and said, you go ahead, and, a great kid. What you want your son to grow up to be like, the guy you want your daughter to bring home. And Travis played football for us, and during the football season of 2003, I got a call at about 3 o'clock in the morning from his mom, hysterically crying. And that's one of those things as a coach that, like, that call never goes away. And she said, Travis in a wreck, and it doesn't look good. So of course I jump up and go to the hospital. Travis ended up passing away that night. And I come to find out more about this story. Travis didn't drink. He had a great reason to not do those things. He had a great reason to not be involved. But he was out with the other guys on the football team who were also drinking. And his best friend in the world was the guy that was drinking, and Travis was like, all right, it's time for me to go home. And the guy said, man, can we just stay out for a little while longer? So they were out till like 2:30 or so in the morning. And Travis had agreed to drive that young man home. So they lost control of the car, and Travis ended up being ejected from the car. But the young man that was drinking that night, he survived. So the other part of the story that I'm going to tell you about, obviously find a reason not to do those things. But if you do those things, or even if you choose not to, be careful about who you associate around. That young man, I still talk to him once a month probably to this day. It still eats him alive that the decisions he made that night cost his best friend in the world his life. So understand that the decisions you make aren't just about you. And I know that's really hard to get as I definitely didn't get, so you guys are all way smarter than I am, very clearly, right, Chipwood? All way smarter than I am. But it's not about you all the time. And sometimes you have to make decisions that are what's best for your family and the people that love you and the people that have spent years and years and years and years putting their time with you. So again, I'll go back to, if you need a why, there it is. all those people that have invested so much time in you to get you where you are today. Gosh, you guys are some of the smartest kids I know. The kids I teach, you guys are some of the smartest kids I know. So we've gotten to this point, and we're going to throw it away. Why? Find a reason not to do those things, okay? I'll kind of wrap this up here. How much time do I have left, Kelsey? 5 minutes, all right, so I got a little bit more time. So, my favorite movie in the world is it's a movie called Finding Forrester. Have you guys seen it before? No, it's old. I'm old. That's the way it goes, I guess. I don't feel old, but I think I'm getting old in this space. I think that's what's happening. Finding Forrester is about a young man who's a basketball player, is also a fantastic writer. And he kind of learns how to be a writer. And he's going to this like really nice school, and he gets accused of plagiarizing work. And he's having a conversation with Sean Connery, which you guys probably don't know who that is either. And Sean Connery tells him, I have a feeling that you'll accomplish a great many wonderful things in your lifetime if you don't screw it up by being a 17-year-old right now. And I have that feeling about all you guys, that you guys will all accomplish great things. I mean, some of you guys are just absolutely brilliant young men and women. And I know you'll go on and accomplish great things if you don't screw it up by being a 17-year-old right now. Guys, those things, drinking and drugs, things like that, they're always going to be there. They're never going to go away. So if you want to do those things, get some perspective for helping you. And then whenever you're 21 or 24, when you have a little more perspective, then if you want to do it, it's still going to be there. It's not like, they're going to sell out at the store. It's still going to be there. So give it some time and get some perspective on it. How many of you guys argue with your parents at home at some point? All right, so all of you. Whenever I was growing up, my dad and I were like oil and water, just nonstop. Like we just did not see eye to eye on anything. I would go so far to say is, I used to yell at my dad, I hate you. Not that you guys have ever done that, but it was pretty strong. Well, my dad's a person in the world now that I respect more than anything. I'm so glad that he was my dad. And like my parents, I got grounded for 3 months for getting a B. 3 months for one B. You know how many B's I got in high school? 1. So I was like, that's stupid. I'm not going to get a B again. But when I was in high school, I did not understand where they were coming from. Again, give some time, get some perspective. Whenever I was in college and I started paying for my own apartment, I was like, oh, this isn't very much fun doing your own laundry and cooking your own food and all that stuff. So give it some time, get some perspective on it. Okay? So wrapping it up here, then I'll ask some questions from you guys. First thing, give it some time. All right, not going anywhere. Second thing, find a reason why. Make sure your reason is strong and it's something you believe in. And last thing, be careful who you surround yourself with. Okay? Be careful. They say that you'll become the 5 people that you spend the most time with in this world. And if you really start to think about who those people are, is that who you want to be? That's the question you've got to ask. So if I'm spending time with 5 people, and this is the truest thing, and Kelsey, you've heard me say this 100 times, the truest thing I've ever seen in high school, you become the 5 people you spend the most time with. Whether you like that or not, that's exactly what's going to happen. So if you're spending time with people and they're doing things that you don't agree with, well, you know what I would say? Find new friends. If that's not who you want to be, then find new friends, okay? I see I have Andrew Hyde staying in the back here as well. You're just taking it in today. I got like a crowd now. Here's how we're going to play this game, because I know how this works teaching high school. I ask a question, everybody sits there and is like, I'm not saying anything. It's definitely not happening. So either we're going to have questions and answers and things like that, or we can all like stand on one leg until they tell us it's time to switch, right? With me. So do you guys have any questions for me about my experiences, and really my experiences as a parent and as a coach and teacher and stuff like that? Anything that you guys are curious, want to know about? somebody ask a question, because otherwise this is going to get super awkward. Good job, Peyton.
The friends you hung out with in high school, like the kids who drink, did they like hear your story and like stop?
Yeah, my best friend in the world, he became me, not me became him. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
When that happened, like, he definitely he went off the reservation for a little while. But ultimately he became more like me, not the other way around. And my friends, Peyton, were like, they knew. They knew even not to ask. And I also didn't walk around and like judge them and say, you're a terrible person for doing this. And when you go back to your school and you talk to people there, when you walk in and you say, you're a bad person, whatever you say next, no one's going to listen to it, doesn't matter. So it's about having like an honest conversation about, is this who you really want to be? Does it make sense? I like it. It's a good question. Yes, ma'am.
I just wonder from your perspective, as when you see a student coming in to a classroom, you've seen like a change in them, or you can tell that something's up. And some of your colleagues, like what do you do?
For me, here's what always changes first. Things that used to be really important to that kid are no longer important. So they used to really care about playing football, and now they're like, whatever, football practice, it doesn't matter. They used to really care about their grades. They were always on top of it. It was always really important to them. And now those things are no longer important. It's very clear to me whenever those types of things are going on. It's not a mystery. And you guys who've been around me, like, it's really not that hard to figure out. Kids, you're making a choice. That addiction thing is really strong. So you're replacing things that used to be important to you, things that you've worked for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years for, with alcohol. Think about that choice. You've put in 10 years into something, and you're going to replace it with something that you want right now. How many of you guys have ever like exercised, tried to lose weight, tried to be in shape, all that stuff? Yeah. The whole concept of that is replacing what you want right now with what you want down the road, right? This is the same thing. No different. All right.
Hi, my name is Sarah White, and I am the Drug Free Communities Project Coordinator for the Campbell County Drug Free Alliance. I am here today at Northern Kentucky University, and I have the honor of participating in the 2016 Campbell County Youth Summit. We are so excited to have youth from throughout the community here to learn about underage drinking and alcohol use. We have about 88 students who are here, and we have a fun-filled day with a lot of education and awareness, and hopefully they can take the information that they learn and they can take it back not only in their school environment but also the community of Campbell County in which they live.
Okay, so I want you all to put on your first grade hat for me. Put on your first grade hat for me, and somebody tell me what you think that first grader might have said that looks like. What's it look like? Play-Doh, okay, very good. Play-Doh. What else? Very good, very, very good. I like the potato, that's very good. Yeah, so one of the first graders, he told me, you know what, I think that looks like the moon. And those are the craters up there. So I thought, okay, that makes sense. I just told him that the dead spots, or the craters, are actually the dead spots in the brain. That's the depressed brain activity showing up there from the underage drinking, and how underage drinking affects the developing brain, which develops until about the ages of 21 to 25. Key answer there, it's going to come back up again, 21 to 25. So I thought, okay, that makes sense. Another little boy, he was all the way sitting in the very, very back, and he raised his hand up. Oh, he wanted to answer so badly. So I said, okay, tell me what you think that looks like. He said, that looks like the Swiss cheese in my mommy's refrigerator. Y'all, I don't know what the Swiss cheese in his mommy's refrigerator looks like. I didn't really want to say too much about that, but that's some really colorful Swiss cheese. I mean, that is some really colorful Swiss cheese up there. He said, that looks like the Swiss cheese in my mommy's refrigerator. I don't know if he should be eating that Swiss cheese. That's what he told me. Yeah, and then another little girl, she was sitting up in the very front, and she told me that, yeah, it looks like Play-Doh. She said, that looks like I took a big wad of Play-Doh, and I rolled it into a perfectly smooth ball, and then I passed it around my entire class. And by the time that it got to the very last person, it would have, hold up that Play-Doh for me, hold up that Play-Doh. Yes, it would have all these scrunchy finger ambience and everything in it. She said that is what that brain that's been exposed to alcohol, our social weekend teen drinker of alcohol, that's what that looks like. I thought that was a pretty good analogy, you know, coming from first graders. So a lot of people, I think we've given them all out on the, all the brains out on the memory thing, but I am going to put up the answers in a minute so y'all can check your own papers. So hopefully everybody has finished those by now. But memory loss. A lot of people will say that underage drinking, that their biggest concern about it is, oh my goodness, I just really hope that my teen doesn't drink and drive. I just really hope that they don't drink and drive. But in fact, on that statewide survey, on actually your Northern Kentucky Youth Survey, 10th grade data, you'll actually said that memory loss was the #1 consequence of drinking or of drug use underage. So 11% versus actually car wreck was all the way down 3%. So much, much lower.
Hi, I'm Kelsey Wasser. I'm the Youth Task Force Coordinator for the Campbell County Drug-Free Alliance. We're here at NKU today for our Youth Summit that I've been planning since May with the help of our coalition. We have 88 students in the student ballroom at Northern Kentucky University right now, learning about underage drinking and precautions and some consequences that can come from doing that. On a daily basis, I work with youth and I try to get them engaged in different aspects through social media, and we've started a Twitter and Instagram. We have our Facebook page running. We're starting a youth task force in the schools in Campbell County, and we want to have youth engagement and work with prevention and make sure that our students are living a safe life.
You all got a lot of different balls. You've got a lot of responsibilities that you've got to keep up in the air at the same time. You've got sports, you've got school. Some of you all probably have a part-time job. Maybe you've got those younger brothers or sisters. You've got to maybe help take care of them. You've got all kinds of responsibilities. Ordinarily, you can keep them all up in the air at once. But what occurs is when alcohol and drugs get into the mix, they become that central focus, kind of like that red balloon. And suddenly, it becomes difficult to keep all the other balls, all the other balloons up in the air at once. So that's just kind of the principle of addiction. Really fun balloon game to kind of illustrate that. I really like it. Some quick facts about addiction. More than half of adults, these are national stats, have a family member with alcoholism or alcohol dependency. More than half of adults. 1 in 4 U.S. children are actually exposed to alcohol disorders within their family. That means that more than 7 million young people in the U.S. are actually living in a household where at least one parent is alcohol dependent or has abused alcohol. We know that a young person starts drinking, early onset of drinking is a strong predictor of alcohol dependency later in life. Those who begin drinking before age 15 are actually about 4 times more likely to become alcohol dependent post age 21 than those who wait until their 21st birthday to take their first real drink. Which middle dot is larger? Which middle dot's larger? They're the same, very good. Yeah, they're the same. They're the same, but it's an optical illusion. It fools your eye whenever you look at it. So in reality, they're both the same size. At first glance, it might appear like most of your peers are drinking, but the truth is that they're not. Actually, it's 78%. So roughly 4 out of 5 of you, 4 out of 5 of the sophomore students in Northern Kentucky high schools have not taken a drink in the last 30 days. And more than half of you all have never had a drink in your lifetime. And I'm guessing with this crowd, it's probably actually much higher than that for the never have a drink in your lifetime. But for the overall student population, the majority don't drink. So my main point to all of this, all of the sports that you all said that you played, all of them, football, cross country, soccer, that was one of them in there, swimming, you all had all kinds of sports that you all named off. All of these athletes, all these different organizations, band member, quarterback, state officer, cheerleader, all these things, they all maybe do different things as far as their athletic or extracurricular preference, but they've got one thing in common. They've got 2 things in common. They're all under 21 and they're choosing to keep it non-alcoholic. My main point to this presentation is that you all are the #1 influence. You're the #1 influence in your peers' life, in your friends. They're paying attention to what you do. And you're also, for those of you with those younger brothers and sisters, they look up to you. They look up to what you're doing. My main message is to be the positive influence. Think about your good choices that you're making in your life, but also think about the people around you and how you can spread this message to them and how you can be the positive influence.
So why do we talk about it? We know that 1 in 5 women will experience sexual assault in their lifetime. We know that 1 in 16 men will experience it as well. Those statistics are super high and they're unacceptable. So it's up to us to be active in preventing it from happening and to have the education behind it. So throughout the course of the presentation, I might refer to women more than men just because it does happen to women at a much higher rate, but I'm not acknowledging that it does happen to men. I know it happens to men. I've seen men come into our office before. It does happen to you all as well, but it happens to women at a higher rate. So we know that only 13% of rape survivors will report their sexual assault. We also know that 8 in 10 survivors knew their attacker, and that 90% of acquaintance rape involved alcohol. So you could do a rough, okay, 80% of the survivors that knew their attacker, 90% of that 80% had experienced alcohol during their attack or before their attack. So, do you all know what consent is? Yes? No? If you don't know, we'll go over it. If you do know, would you like to share what it is, what you think it is, and what your definition of it is? Yeah.
Consent is like permission, like they say yes, not just at the beginning of the initiation of saying yes.
That's awesome, yes. That's a great definition. Anyone else? So we've asked our students at NKU multiple times, what do you all define consent? And this is what we kind of pulled for them. It's when both people are agreeing mutually that they want to engage in any form of sexual activity. So, as my friend said, it starts at the beginning, but it continues throughout the entire process. Consent cannot be given if you are under the influence of drugs or alcohol. It's a law, but it's also just a fact as well. You are not making correct decisions. So what I always tell our students, if you are under the influence, just don't engage because you're protecting both yourself and the other person. If you're touching someone in their genitals, their buttocks, their breasts, without their permission, that is sexual assault. Should be freely given. So that means you should never be forced, intimidated, coerced to give consent. You should just be able to say, I want to engage in this activity with you. We both want to do it. We're not pressuring each other, and that's consent. It should never be assumed or implied. So you shouldn't be looking at someone's body language, you should be looking for their verbals, because we know that our body reacts when we're in a high risk situation, our body's going to react to protect us. So you might think that their body is telling you that they want to have sex with you. Their body's protecting themselves. They could not actually want to have sex with you. That's why we always say you want that verbal communication and you want it throughout the entirety of the process. And if you are not asking for consent, you're putting your partner at risk for doing something that they don't want to do, and you're putting yourself at risk for being, you're breaking the law, and then you can face criminal charges. So that's how important consent is. You're responsible to help your partner, and you're responsible to help yourself and protect yourself as well. So why might people not be able to give consent? Well, they might be unconscious for any reason. They might be scared or intimidated. They might suffer from a mental illness that cannot let them give consent freely of their own mind. They might be under the influence of drugs and alcohol. They might be, and that could be, so the next one talks about being impaired because someone else gave you drugs. So if you're under the influence voluntarily or involuntarily, you cannot give consent. And then the absence of yes is not the absence of no. So what that means is that just because someone doesn't say no does not mean that they're saying yes. So we just have to know that we should always be using those verbal cues, as I said earlier. Can you all think of ways that you could ask for consent aside from hey, do you want to do this? Anything? It's okay. That's just one thing that sometimes I get some creative answers for it, and I always like to hear what you all have to say. So what is drug-facilitated sexual assault? It's if the offender either administers drugs to the person or they take advantage of them being under the influence to perform sexual activities. So alcohol is the most common drug used when you are talking about drug-facilitated sexual assault. And so when you're under the influence of alcohol, you are experiencing a bunch of different neurological factors. So one of those is that you're less likely to be able to resist things, so you're going to be slower at making decisions and all of that. So that's a lot of different resistance strategies that you're not getting if you're under the influence. We've also found that only 2% of survivors will report their sexual assault if they were under the influence of drugs or alcohol when it happened. And that's another barrier that we work through with students, is that it's not your fault. Even if you are voluntarily drinking, it's not your fault that it happened because you didn't ask for that to happen. You gave yourself permission to drink, but you did not give a person to take advantage of you being intoxicated. Have any of you all taken or done anything with Green Dot, the bystander intervention technique? Okay, that's fine. I know some high schools have had it come in and some people have had training on it. So Green Dot is a way that we engage our students to show them that they have the capability to help in sexual assault. And that is by doing different things and different tactics. So what I always tell students when I'm talking to them about Green Dot is that you need to know what your personality is, what barriers you might have to intervening, and then what tactic would be the best one for you. So we're going to look at this scenario that someone is really drunk at a party and they're being led upstairs by another person. They're being led away from the group. So does that sound like a good situation to be witnessing? Does that sound like there's a lot of risks that could potentially happen? Yeah, okay. So what can you do to help stop that? You can be direct and you can go up and say, hey, I don't think you should go up there. That doesn't seem like the best decision. Let's go down. No, you're not doing that. You can distract the person. So for the girls in the room, do you all, if you're out with your friends, are you more likely to go to the restroom by yourself or take a friend with you? And it's silly. Some people say yes, some people say no. You're gonna take a friend with you more than likely. So you can go up, if it's a girl, you say, hey, I really have to go to the bathroom, will you come with me? Just kind of drag them along. So you get them away from the situation, you're distracting them from what could happen. Or you can say, your car is getting towed, better go move it, the police are coming. And then if you want to delegate, then you can find the friend that the person came with. and say, hey, your friend could potentially be going into a situation that's not safe. Would you mind going and getting her? So regardless of what tactic you choose, if you see a situation that you think could, and you know in your gut that it could lead to something that that person is not capable of making a decision for themselves, then you have a responsibility to step in and do something.